Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to a new episode of the Ambition Podcast. My name is Tristan, I'm the host here of the podcast. And in this episode, what you guys are going to be listening and watching to is a conversation that I had with Syd Large, who is the social media manager for Opendorse, which is the leading athlete marketing platform out there, helping athletes grow their name, image, and likeness and monetize their brand and so forth. In this conversation, we talk about how she got into sports, some of the highlights of her career up to this point in time, the Support Women in Sports movement, which she helped create, and we talk about athletes on social media and a ton of different things. So hopefully you guys do enjoy this episode. If you guys do, please make sure again to show your support, whether it's through a rating on audio platforms or leaving a like and subscribing here on YouTube. With that being said, let's get to the episode. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Tristan. You guys know me as the host of the Ambition Podcast. And today on the podcast, we have a really special guest on the podcast. We have Sydney. I think you're going to be better to introduce yourself because I probably won't do you enough justice.
Yeah, I'm Syd Large. I'm currently the founder of Support Women in Sports, and I'm also the social media manager at Opendorse.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for coming on to the podcast. I mean, it's fun. Opendorse is like 20 minutes from where I live. So like every time I go downtown, it's always like, oh, I'm walking right in front of the office without thinking about it. So it's always fun. So kind of to get things rolling, I guess, kind of talk about, yourself, your journey, like up to this point, like, kind of the special things, and everything.
Yeah, I graduated from the University of Minnesota back in May of 2020. So when all of this COVID stuff happened, I
Yeah.
was a senior in school. So it was very interesting going into the job market at that time. And thankfully, like, I found my dream job in the midst of a pandemic, which who would have thought? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely been like a whirlwind of like the past really like year, I would say. And yeah, just hoping like 2021 is a little bit better. And yeah, I don't know, like my sports journey has been crazy. Like I've been actively involved of like working in sports since high school. So like seeing my goals from like 5, 6 years ago to like my goals now today has been really interesting. And just that's kind of a crazy journey of like sports and life, is like you never know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I think sports and media are like the two worlds where it's just like, okay, like we're here, like let's see what happens. Because I mean, like I started as a YouTuber like 8 years ago, and good lord, like I couldn't imagine where like content has gone at this point with like all the big YouTubers and streamers across all these different platforms. I mean, TikTok barely existed uh like years ago and stuff. So it's been crazy to kind of see how things have progressed. I mean, like, I feel the same with just the journey being crazy, because even like if someone asked me like 8 years ago if I saw myself where I am now, like 21 years old, running my own business and being a content creator and all this and that, I'd probably tell them like, yeah, you're a little crazy. Um, you know,
Yeah,
um, I guess like, what was the craziest moment, I guess, like in your sports career up to this point though, that like really kind of, I guess, solidified like I not necessarily like I've made it, but like, like this is a surreal moment on the way there.
definitely working my third Super Bowl is like kind of when it hit. I was like,
Wow.
okay, like I've done enough. I guess like
Yeah.
I was always somebody like in school where I was like, oh, I need to be doing more, I need to be doing more, I need to be doing more.
Yeah.
But then like being in a pretty high level position there and like it being my third and like me being trusted and
Yeah.
known by a lot of individuals at that event, I was like, okay, like
Yeah.
I've made it. Like I've established myself in this industry.
Yeah. I mean, like, getting to work one Super Bowl is like crazy enough. Getting to work three, like, that has my mind blown. I mean, there's kids I went to high school with that I know worked. I think it was last year's like college football playoffs championship game. I was like, yeah, that's lucky. I was like, I'll never get to do that. I'm like, the closest to that I get to do is like concerts and gaming events and stuff. Which, I mean, to each their own. Like, it's fun. I think next year, depending on how COVID is, I've like planned out, like, I'm traveling at least to like 3 separate events alone. Um, and 2 of those I hope are going to be international ones, because I'm just like, I want to travel more. Um, I haven't traveled outside the States in like close to 2 years. Maybe, yeah, close to 2 years at this point. So obviously you created Support Women in Sports. Kind of talk about, like, what led up to that moment of like, you're like, women and diversity in sports is something obviously that's very underrepresented, and a lot of opportunities don't obviously come to the females in sports and entertainment and so forth. Like, what led up to that point?
Honestly, like the whole thing was kind of a happy accident. Like Support Women in Sports actually started as a sticker, which kind of like blew up on Twitter overnight. Like there's a lot of really good attention
Yeah,
on it, and I think like from that attention I realized I was like, okay, like this is an actual like issue and cause and that like people in the industry care
yeah,
about. And I saw like a real need for it. So from there, like one of my friends and I, like I started a Twitter account. I was like, I'm just gonna get the handle and like start
yeah.
posting some stuff. Within the first week, we grew from 0 to 1,000, which was
Oh, wow.
crazy. So I brought on my co-host Alana, who was actually the first person to see the sticker design, and together, like we started this whole podcasting thing and really just kind of a platform to like support women in the industry. Like it's pretty self-explanatory at the end of the day, but
Yeah,
yeah, it was just kind of like a happy accident. Like we're very like positive vibes only. Like we don't really get into like anything controversial. It's just like here's the good that the women in this industry are doing, and like we're trying to bring attention to that. Not trying to cause drama at all. Like I think there's some like maybe women in sports accounts that like pick fights and stuff, and I didn't want to
yeah,
be like that. Like I wanted like a very just like safe place where like everybody's ideas are valued.
yeah,
So yeah, I think that's like kind of how it started, and it like just keeps growing. And honestly, like Alana and I both have started full-time jobs within the past 2 months, so it's kind of slowed down a little bit. So we're starting up a creative fund, which her and I are still like working to see like what projects we've had a few projects freelanced out, so really tapping into like the creatives in the industry. I
yeah,
think something that's a big issue in this industry is unpaid creative work, especially for like young people. Like, oh, you want to do this project for me to like add to your portfolio? Like that mentality needs to stop. So actually like paying young creatives, I
yeah,
mean, we don't have a lot, but like a little bit just to do one-off projects is kind of like our next goal and like phase.
yeah. I mean, I'll say, coming from a creative perspective, like, I think if you're starting out like very early in like an industry, like especially the design community or so forth, maybe, like just building up a portfolio, like just,
Mm.
I mean, just for, for fun, or at least like being like, hey, here's what I can do at least. Like, I think that's perfectly fine. But yeah, I think there's a certain like cutoff point, at least, like maybe after like 6 months to a year, where it's like, now it's like, okay, like hopefully I've proven my work ethic. Hopefully the designs like resonate or have like a deep message with somebody, where it's like, yeah, um, now like I can start getting gigs and stuff like that. And I mean, I've seen some female designers, or like people at least here in the esports industry, who have like stopped like running teams to then create their own like agencies, and I'm just like, that's awesome to see. Um, so I definitely agree though. And I mean, like, I think, you brought up one point how like this whole movement was like kind of like not intentionally like, oh, we're going to do this. It was kind of like just, kind of like a snowball of things to where it led up to. I think like that's when like things really become like special and everything, because it's like you don't plan for it to turn into this massive thing, and it just happens organically, which is, it's always fun. I mean, I guess that's from my perspective at least, and hopefully that's coming from a good place.
Yeah.
So I guess, going from there, like obviously, now you're working at Opendorse, which is kind of awesome because, I mean, I'll be honest, I've lived here in Lincoln for like 6 years, and I only found out about Opendorse like this year, which is, it's kind of like, I'm sure there's some people from Opendorse who like follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn and stuff, and probably going to be like a little hurt by that, but it's like, my world is esports and online content. I don't get to experiment outside of that too often. But like kind of talk about like how that experience like kind of started, and I guess what you're most excited for with like, obviously the future of things, because I know Opendorse just announced a couple of new things recently, that being the Opendorse monitor and Opendorse deals thing. But like, kind of talk about all of that, I guess.
Yeah, I guess like just stepping back for a second and like talking about like support women in sports as like very organic and natural. Like we have completely just, it's such a fluid social media account and what we've done. They're really community driven, which is really interesting to see because I've never managed a social media platform that's so community run. Like, yes, my co-host and I, everyone's like hitting send, but like all of our content that we do is like other things that we've seen in the industry and like industry trends and stuff like that. So it's been interesting to shift from managing college athletics. I managed a tech startup account in college for a little over a year, and that's where I learned a lot of like my basis of content creation.
Yeah.
From support women in sports and like actually building my personal account over quarantine, because previously I didn't really touch my personal account.
Yeah.
Shifting into a whole new social strategy with Opendorse has been really interesting. Like it's been really cool, but like that's the cool thing about social media strategy is like, yes, you're creating a social media strategy, but for every brand and every business, it's completely different. And then like we go into that too a lot. Like our goal is to help every athlete, right? So every athlete is going to have their own personal brand, and we connect the endorsement community, so athletes and brands together, and trying to find things that like fit for them. And like we always talk about like being authentic and just having everything like naturally and organically align. And I think for me with like support women in sports, it's helped me like understand like that natural community driven social media engagement.
Yeah, because especially like you're, again, you already like started something that's organic and like speaks to a culture and that people can kind of resonate around, and people feel like they have this voice, and then obviously building your own brand at the same time. So it's kind of like unique going into that thing with Opendorse and kind of being like, I somewhat have an idea of like how to help you, or like how we can help, and be like, there's this and this and this and that. And I think that's what the beauty of social media is, especially with like, I mean, TikTok, even as a good instance, because there's a lot of athletes who are on TikTok. It's like you're not only making content that's engaging to a lot of people, but it's also like unique, and it's like most people only make content based off of like what like they really like out there, which I think is just super cool, because it's like you can kind of get a sense of like who a person is, and also at the same time somewhat build kind of a connection with that person. I mean, similar to like I grew up not necessarily being a comics fan, but like the last 7 years I've been a Marvel show fan, and so now like I'm in the circles of like Cloak and Dagger fans and Runaway fans and Agents of Shield fans, and it's always so nice to kind of see like that again, that organic like culture kind of developing. I guess like what are some of the most like surprising things you've seen happening in sports with social media as of like recently, that kind of like intrigue you, or like you're excited to see like where it could possibly go?
I'm obsessed with TikTok right now. Like, I think it's such an untapped part of the
Yeah,
industry that everybody needs to look into. Like, I've
yeah,
been doing a lot of research lately, right? And there's this D3 college hockey player named Lawson McDonald, and he
yeah,
is outperforming every single NHL team.
yeah,
Another kid, student athlete from Stetson Baseball, he's outperforming every single MLB team on social media,
yeah,
like, or on TikTok, not
yeah,
social, but on TikTok. And it's like, name another platform where a small, either a D3 or a mid-major college athlete
yeah,
can outperform major league teams. Like, you can't. Like, they're not outperforming anybody on Instagram. They're not
yeah,
outperforming anybody on Twitter. So like, TikTok is at one place, and it also allows them to show their true personality and really like dive into your personal brand because you
yeah,
are putting your face out there, you know? So I think there's a ton of opportunity there, especially for student athletes. And
yeah,
with the recruiting environment the way it is right now with COVID, like recruits can't go tour a college, right?
yeah,
So they're turning to these student athletes on TikTok to show them around the campuses, to show them around facilities, to show them like what the team culture is truly like. So I think there's like so much power and potential there, and it's
yeah,
been completely overlooked by the sports industry right now.
yeah,
So trying to bring like a lot more attention to that because it's insane. Like,
yeah.
I don't know, from Fresno State, there's two twin basketball players who play for Fresno State, and like, they're outperforming Juju on TikTok, and
Yeah,
like,
I was
Juju
just
is
about to
known.
bring them up because I was like, I
Yeah,
follow them on TikTok and everything, and I mean like, there's a couple others like Juju. I follow him on TikTok just for the fun of it. I mean, there's a couple different athletes I'm sure that I follow without like actually like realizing it. But I mean, like going back to like the point you made about how like TikTok's so unique. Like as someone who came from YouTube, who's like used to like all these algorithms and strategies and content, and like, okay, you have to do this in a certain way, and then like I spent like probably 5 or 6 months without actually making content on TikTok, like hoping like, okay, maybe I can like create some kind of strategy, and then like eventually I'm just like, throw that out the window. Let's just see how this goes. And I mean, I've got a couple dozen followers, but like, like, it's still fun enough to post on there. Like one of the things I'm going to do on a separate TikTok that I have is I'm working on actually producing a show that will go on like YouTube and my own streaming platform. And I think I'm going to actually do that through TikTok. And it's a whole like horror based show, which I think people will like really, really like. So it'll be kind of like fun to really see like how TikTok progresses. But yeah, like this whole like convergence of athletes and like influencers like kind of mixing together. It's something that's really awesome. And everything.
yeah. And like, the cool thing too about TikTok is like, if you go to somebody's TikTok profile, it directly links to their Instagram and their YouTube. So it's helping them
Yeah,
create content on all platforms and like motivation to create content on all platforms. So like, having that connection is huge, and like, there's not any other platforms that do that. Like,
yeah,
you can put a link in your Instagram bio, but it doesn't give you, here's all my social platforms, go
yeah,
follow me on all of them in like 3 simple taps.
yeah,
So I think like that discoverability, and then also the kind of randomness of the algorithm, you could
yeah,
say, like, really pushes people to create content and keep creating content. And like,
yeah,
you might not go viral on your first video, but maybe after 5 or 6 you could,
yeah.
or maybe you're like, I don't know, like, the randomness of it
Yeah,
is
it's like,
really
you could
unique.
slump in mediocrity for like 4 months and then be like, oh, I finally got a video with like 300,000 views.
Exactly.
It's kind of crazy. Um, I know that when we were talking in DMs, like you kind of wanted to know a little bit about like the esports industry and stuff, because obviously it's esports has like grown so much, and like it's crazy because like I hear people all the time talking about like esports is this big thing, and I'm just like I've been here for 8 years. I'm like it's still like very small compared to like and crazy. So I mean like yeah, I guess the floor is like yours if you want to ask any questions or anything like that, or just like picking minds or anything.
Yeah, I guess like I don't know, like esports is very interesting. I feel
Yeah,
like throughout college, like we talked about it a lot, and like I think a lot of big publications like Front Office Sports or
yeah,
SBJ, they go in and talk about it a lot, but like I never actually hear anybody in the industry talking about it. I don't know if it's just like a really niche part of the industry and it's something like I don't know, like I'm not like crazy interested
yeah,
in, but I'm like crazy of like the logistics of it and like
yeah,
how big it actually is growing. Because like I don't know, I read all these articles, they're like, oh, like esports is the next big thing, and I'm like,
yeah.
is it? I'm like, I don't ever hear about it. So I
So
guess like
yeah, I mean like here's a couple of big facts. Like as of this year, esports is $1 billion industry across like ticket sales, merchandise, sponsorships. Like I forget the numbers, but it's like at least like $300 million a year is like is in like sponsorships and advertising. Like I posted some photo a while back during the summer where like I compared the list of like people from football from like NCAA football and then the people who were like invested into esports and like advertising and sponsorships. It was like Audi, MasterCard, Buffalo Wild Wings, Arby's, like all these bigger brands that it's like you don't even see on like a football or a basketball field, which is crazy. Um, I mean like Ninja's obviously someone that everybody knows, and
yeah.
I would dream to know what Ninja's net worth is at this point. Like he earned like $40 million in the summer from like getting out of a contract. So I'm just like, yeah, I'm at least figuring like 8 figures on that. I would say like the fun thing is like esports like stretches across the globe. It's not just North America or like Europe, but it's in like I've had the pleasure of working with like amateur Call of Duty teams in Cape Town, South Africa. I've picked up mobile teams in the Philippines of all places. Like there's a growing scene in places like Lebanon and the Middle East, North Africa region, which is crazy. I mean, China and Korea are obviously like the big places, but that's because they have like video game cafes as like a usual. It's like how we have Starbucks here on every corner. It's like almost a similar thing there. Um, I'd also say the fact that like we're kind of adapting to the franchise model that you see in like a lot of like major sports leagues. Like there's the Overwatch League, Call of Duty League, League of Legends is obviously has like multiple different leagues within it. Um, so I think that there's a lot of similarities and kind of comparable things to esports and traditional sports, which just kind of makes it like hey, we're the little brother, but like we're getting there, which is kind of fun. I mean I'm someone who even got a college scholarship to play video games. Like that to me was crazy. I never got to go through it, unfortunately, because private institutions charge way too much money. Um, but like it's crazy, and it's something that it's like I used to say my job in esports as an owner is predicting where the future will go, and then like planning to like what's past that. And like this year, I've just kind of been like, yeah, that's not possible anymore. It's like wake up and like I woke up one morning, I was like, huh, this Danish professional organization now has their own credit card that fans in Denmark can get. I'm like, there's organizations that are now on the stock market. There are organizations that have like some of the biggest teams in the world that are now crowdfunding and letting casual fans own a piece of the actual company itself. So it's very crazy and different. But I think it's fun at the same point.
Yeah, for sure. I guess like I kind of like compare it to almost like Formula One or NASCAR, where there's all these individual people and they have their own sponsorships and all of that, but then they're
Yeah.
also parts of teams and leagues, and it's a very like more like F1, I guess, is more global, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, like, and even there's F1 like racing teams and stuff. And
Yeah.
um, I mean, I'm sure that there's some people who know me in the esports community who are gonna hate me for this, but I used to be a big believer in like the NBA games, Madden, FIFA, like those were coming into esports. I was like, I don't see this blowing up. And then like a year or so ago, I was like, it's like, okay, you guys have proved me wrong. Like, uh, because I think it was especially like the Jacksonville shooting where I was like, it's like I knew that they held Madden tournaments, so I was like, I didn't know it was that much prize pool, and I didn't know people were flying all over the country to Florida, and then I was like watching the movement of people that were like kind of mourning the loss of the people that were injured or like hurt or what or died, and I was like, whoa, this community is a lot bigger than I thought it was. And so, again, there's been times where it's surprising, but yeah, I'd say Formula One is kind of like really intriguing. I mean, otherwise, um, I don't know. Like, I think it's kind of hard to find one thing to really compare esports, and that's, I guess that's just coming from like an inside perspective. But yeah, it's been crazy. Just seeing where things have gone. Um, that's I mean, I'm sure that eventually things will be like even crazier. But who knows?
Yeah, I think like the longer we see like COVID go on, like I think the more and more room for opportunity for leagues like that to grow is going to happen.
Oh
I
yeah.
think as we see like TikTok too is another thing like that we're just going to see continue to grow as people are kind of in this like COVID world, I guess, where you're not necessarily socializing
Yeah.
in person, you're socializing like online. Like I've met so many random people throughout COVID and Twitter and stuff who like I talk to on like a daily basis, but I've never
Yeah.
met them in person.
Yeah, I think what's been like the craziest thing is like uh getting in when I got into the industry like 8 years ago, like the teams like Optic Gaming, FaZe Clan, things like those. Like those were the teams I grew up watching and like kind of supporting. It's crazy. Like my first event, I got to meet like the founders and like the big members of like FaZe Clan at the time, and then I got to meet Hex, who created and runs Optic Gaming, and I'm just like, you guys are my idols, and the reason why I got into doing this. Like that's kind of crazy. Like, Nadeshot, who runs 100 Thieves, funny enough, like is the reason I started making content. And my first event, I not only got a signed hat from him, but like the Jordans I was wearing at that event, like we didn't know he was showing up. I had a friend like take my right Jordan and I had him sign it with photo and everything. And I was just like, that's kind of like crazy. So it's fun, again, with the whole world in COVID, I think like, especially one thing I've heard from like universities and stuff is, and from like people who run programs is like, they were really like, especially in esports, they weren't really noticed, and then COVID hit, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, what can we do for you? Like, how can we help? Like, what resources do you need from us?" And I silently chuckle at that because it's like, like finally, like somebody recognizes, like, "Hey, we've been here. Like, maybe it's been a year or two, like, but like, hey, we've been here. Slowly building craft." And I think one of the things I'm really excited for, especially with the change in NIL coming next year, is that gamers could officially start making like esports programs, athletic like programs if they really wanted to, because now like one of the biggest things about gamers and stuff is like we have our own sponsorships, our own affiliate programs, our own like apparel and getting donations on like Twitch and YouTube, and now we can finally do that if we wanted and not risk academic or athletic ineligibility, which is like amazing to me, because like I can't stress how many programs I've seen like stray away. Like I remember Ohio State when they built their esports program, built their own separate like federation or so forth, just so they could stray away from that. I was like now it's kind of cool to see where things are going.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're gonna see a lot more like monetization from like TikTok, like has its creative fund, right? Or creator fund. Like there's going to
Yeah,
be monetization opportunities off of that. Like YouTube, like that's been a big thing in the past. And I think that's still going to be like a conversation.
yeah,
But yeah, I think there's going to be like a lot of opportunities that just open up, which is going to be cool to see. And it's just going to be cool to see like how student athletes capitalize on those opportunities. And
yeah.
I think it's important for them to start like kind of growing their brand now and like getting familiar with social media and the tools that they have available to grow. Um, but yeah, it's definitely, there's like a lot of opportunities in the future, and it's very exciting for this industry.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest things I tell people, because like I do some like brand development and stuff with people, and like I'm even building like my own NIL solution for collegiate athletes for esports and stuff. Is like just post at least once a day, like whether it's just like showing your setup, whether it's like a clip that you hit online, or like something cool that you saw while you're out and about, or maybe like a song that you're like jamming to at the time on like Amazon or Spotify. Like just post it, because I mean, don't post like the audio, because dear Lord, DMCA's are flying like crazy right now. But like, like just post something, because it doesn't hurt. Like even myself, sometimes like I'll spend days trying to get like a gameplay for a video, and I'm just like, I'm like, I have a library of like 800 videos. I can go back and reuse something, and then go and make a new video. Like, and I think people just also like don't. I hate it. Like it's kind of this mantra, and it's something that Nebraska says, like have no fear of failure, because it's like the minute you feel like you're about to fail, like you just start like doubting. Like it's one of the craziest things. Like I'm especially even myself. Like there's so many people who will always bring up like, have you thought about this? And it's a negative thing compared to like a positive like suggestion or outlook or input on something. It's just like that whole creative morale is like what builds creativity and innovation, especially on a platform like TikTok. Like some of just the craziest memes that I've seen on like Twitter and Instagram and even on YouTube have come from places like Vine and TikTok. I mean, like think about it, like the trend last year where I think it was like the egg or something. Like someone made a Twitter account for an egg. It was like, let's see if we can get more likes or more retweets than the Ellen from the Oscars tweet, and it ended up doing it. And so I think it's just like, don't feel afraid to like test something, and just like be yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Just like go for it. That's always
Yeah,
like my motto is like the worst answer that you're ever gonna get in life is no,
yeah,
or like no response. So like just go for it. Like just try.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, for
And I
sure.
mean, even on that, like, um, even if you get a no, like, take a look at like what someone else is doing, and be like, you know what? How can I put my own spin on that? Like, I really like this. Like, how can I make it mine? And I think like that's where like you really start to find like your creative process. Um, but I mean, like going from there, I guess like and before we kind of like wrap up, like what are three things that you would either tell like your self, your past self, or like somebody else who's trying to get into the industry, like whether it's sports or content or so forth?
Oh gosh, that's hard. Probably like don't plan your life too far ahead. Like things are gonna change. Like stay flexible. Like stay fluid in your plan. Um, Still have goals and like challenge yourself, but like don't be too set on something because you never know like when
Yeah,
opportunity is gonna come. Um, I guess second is just like I feel like I've been good at this, but just maintaining a positive attitude, and like there's
yeah,
gonna be highs and lows. So take every day as an opportunity instead of a challenge, and just like try to find the good in everything as hard as it is. Um, And lastly, like just really like being proactive rather than reactive. Like if you want something, like take the steps to go get it instead of waiting for somebody to like give you something. I don't know. I had like a tweet today about like, or yesterday about like being proactive instead of reactive, like even with networking. And I
Yeah,
think that just like applies to like a lot of phases and factors of life is like,
yeah.
just go out and do it. Like just do it, you know?
I mean, yeah, like a good example for me is again with not only TikTok but like LinkedIn. I've been growing on LinkedIn like crazy this year. I posted that I like acquired another startup this year, which it's crazy. I'm again, for those that know me, I'm 21 years old and I run 8 startups. Like Jesus, it's been a crazy year. But
I
like
bet.
I like literally like acquired a startup, made the LinkedIn post, and like within 5 hours it got like 500 views, and I was like, people in Europe are seeing this. And funny enough, like people like I went one day and like I go every couple of days and look at it, like even people from Opendorse have seen it, and I'm like, that's crazy. And like Virginia Tech's on that list, and I'm just like, geez, like some of these companies I'm like I would dream of working with. It's like how I'm like I never knew that you guys were like silently watching my LinkedIn page, waiting. And even a good example is like tomorrow on at the time of recording this podcast, I get to interview the former president of like a record label who multiple of the bands on that label I listen to. So I'm just like that's crazy. Like who would have thought? But yeah, I think you just have to go out there and try. But again, I appreciate you coming on to the podcast and everything, and taking the time out of an incredibly busy day, because I know we've been trying to get this like sort of for like at least a couple weeks, almost maybe a month or so. So it's definitely great
Yeah.
to connect and have you on the podcast and everything. I look forward to like seeing the growth that your personal brand has, that Opendorse has. And I mean, who knows if Opendorse wants to get further in the esports industry? Like, hey, I worked with them once. I'm down to like to come swing on by and be like, hey, let me show you guys. I mean, that if anyone's watching this, I mean, that's an open invitation. But like,
I will let you know.
I mean, Blake follows me on Twitter. It's like but I understand like everyone's always busy and stuff, and it's fun. But no, I'm like, no pressure. I don't expect anything at this point in life. But yeah, again, I do appreciate you coming on to the podcast and everything.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And for everyone who's watching or listening to this, please be kind to me on Twitter, because I know you guys have been hassling me like about all the backlogged episodes we have, because I think now at this point we have over like 17 backlogged episodes. It started in, I want to say in May of this year, and then like it was like getting 2 or 3 podcasts done a week, and I'm just like, I'm one guy here, people. But
Yeah.
if you're listening to this on, I want to say Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, Breaker, make sure to share it with your friends. Make sure to follow the podcast, leave a review, because it helps. It puts a smile on my face when you do it, and I mean that's kind of necessary in this time that we're in. And then also, if you guys want to follow us on social media, the podcast is Ambition PDCST on both Twitter and Instagram. Cindy, if you want to plug your social media, go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm just Syd Large 18 on all of my handles. So
Yeah, definitely. And again, with that being said, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Ambition Podcast, and we'll see all of you in the next one.